Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Obviously, we're still confused over Thanksgiving. Welcome to the Tulsa World Scene podcast. I'm here with Jimmy Trammell and Grace Wood, my colleagues on the Tulsa World Scene desk, where we deal with cultural issues that appeal to brows high, middle, and low. We're and something that sort of hits all of those at one point or another is the BOK Center, which has had everything from uh, bull riding on up. And Jimmy, they're coming up on an anniversary this in the next few weeks. Is that right?
Well, actually, in the next year, I've got a a people story Sunday about an employee who's worked there even before it opened to the public, and seems to be kind of a beloved by all employee who works there. But this person is going to turn 92 very soon. But the BOK Center is turning 15 next year, so it'll be on us quick. I mean, it just seems like yesterday that the arena had opened, but with the arena turning 15, do you guys recall any of the initial skepticism, like, oh, nobody's going to go downtown to that thing?
Oh, yeah. There was a radio host on back when we had a local news talk station who was very much anti-downtown and very much anti the mayor at the time. And yeah, he kind of led a one-man crusade to try to scuttle it. And said that, nobody's gonna come downtown. You can't park downtown. There were no restaurants that he liked downtown because but yeah. And then when the design was revealed by Cesar Pele, a lot of people were like, what the heck is that? But it's coming. The only thing about it that I think wasn't well thought out is that it faces a one-way street that goes away from the BOK Center. And so you can't drive toward it, and see it. You can only see it only see it in your rearview mirror, kind of a way. And if the street, there's no way it could have been fixed without knocking down a library or something. But I always thought that was a missed opportunity, that where you drive toward this architectural gem that it was called at the time. So.
Grace, there was real skepticism, like, would people come downtown? Because it's kind of transformed downtown into a place. My phone wants to ring, so we're going to turn this off. It's actually one of those telemarketers, so let's talk about telemarketing. It has helped to transform downtown, obviously, and people have gone to BOK Center for just hundreds of events over the years. I'm going to ask you, Grace, and ask you, James. Give me kind of your top events ever that you've gone to at BOK Center. Grace?
Oh man, that's such a good question, because so many amazing people have come through there. I think, well, just off the top of my head, Laney was really fun when they came in October of last year, I believe it was, because
Halloween show. Yeah,
Halloween show. And that was like one of my first assignments for Tulsa World, because I had started like 2 weeks earlier. So that was
right. I remember that. Yeah,
so that was really cool. Who else? I got to see Taylor Swift there before her concert tickets were thousands and thousands of dollars like they are now. Katy Perry was amazing. Her whole stage was decorated like Candyland, and she would come out on like a cloud, like floating around. So that was cool. Who else? Dua Lipa came earlier this year. I got to see her. That was amazing. And my first ever show there was probably right when it opened. I got to see Janet Jackson, which I think I was maybe a little too young to appreciate. But that's an interesting memory to have. So those are some of my favorites.
James?
Well, my experience with it is much less extensive. I usually have to go to the stuff that's at all the other theaters. But there was a time when Cirque du Soleil came regularly to the BOK Center, and that sort of became that was what I would usually get to go or be assigned to go to cover. I remember one, I believe it was called Turok, Turok, that was set in the world of Avatar, and everybody was, in blue body paint, and there was a lot of very wild state-of-the-art projections that created the set and the scenery and the interactions among it. And it was the songs were in the language that was created for the alien characters in the film, and it was a pretty eye-dazzling thing. But the other most memorable show that I went to was last summer in June. Wynton Marsalis and the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra and the Tulsa Symphony and a local choir put on his Wynton Marsalis's oratorio All Rise. That was kind of the culminating event in the commemoration of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And it was a great concert. It was really, really moving and thrilling, and truly a one-of-a-kind experience that I'm glad I was able to be there. So how about you, Jimmy?
Well, I'll start off with my most disappointing moment there. It's not because of any of the acts. The NCAA tournament, basketball tournament, was there, and Kansas was playing Boston in a first round game. And I thought, well, this is going to be fun. I will go ask players from Kansas and Boston University if this was a battle of the bands, who would win, Kansas or Boston? And this is a negative memory because it's one of those moments where you feel old, because none of those players knew who Kansas or Boston was, the band. So that went nowhere. So that was disappointing. The first concert I saw there was Neil Diamond. I love Neil Diamond, so I'm obviously biased about that. But so many, legends have come through. Paul McCartney, obviously the Eagles, Elton John, Billy Joel. So, you can't go wrong with those guys. And Tulsa is so fortunate in that if this arena had never been built, none of those people I just mentioned are coming to Tulsa, period.
Yeah, because I remember concerts in the old convention center, which is now the Cox Business Convention Center. And it had an arena, and it was pretty rudimentary. It was mainly designed for ice hockey and the occasional show. I remember, what did I go see there? Oh, Genesis. Back in the 90s, they came to town. But the interesting thing about it is that the detractors for the BOK Center pointed to the convention that said that we've already got an arena downtown. We don't need another one. And it's been interesting to see how the Cox Center has repurposed itself. It still puts on performances of various acts, not quite of the caliber that the BOK does, but I mean, it's still busy, but it's also very much a place where, you know, all sorts of things go on. I mean, the ballet performed there during COVID because they could space out the audience so much that, you know, there were these little clumps of 4 seats all around the grand ballroom. So things like that. So, you know, and people talk about the struggle of filling seats, but most every venue you go to is, you know, not terribly struggling to fill it up. So just curious, what does the 92-year-old guy who's worked at the BOK from the start do?
It's a she. It's Jean Rogers. She's the concierge for premium guests. And
I was afraid you're going to tell me it was, you know, some guy that, you know, climbs up on the catwalk and hangs from the ceiling to put in the lights or something.
no, but before my time, before Grace's time, I'm sure before your time too, James. But she used to make appearances on the Cowboy Bill and Umagog show back on Channel 2 in the 50s and 60s. Bring zoo pets there. So she goes, her Tulsa roots are pretty deep.
All right. Well, speaking of Tulsa roots, this weekend, the first weekend in December, is the second annual Golf Fest, which is a celebration, examination, exploration of Bruce Goff, who's architect, one of the more original and unusual visionaries in the architectural world, and he was a native Oklahoman, lived and worked in Tulsa for much of his career. And you've got something about one of the things that one can do as part of Golf Fest, Ms. Wood.
Yeah, so I wrote something for this Saturday about one of the homes that people are going to be able to tour as a part of Golf Fest. It's the Adams House in Veneta, which is a really cool example of Bruce Goff's sort of organic style. It's just a super beautiful home with an interesting history. And I got to talk to one of the people who currently live in the house now, Suzanne. She grew up in the home back in the 60s and then moved back to Tulsa 2 years ago for COVID to take care of her mom, and who still lived in the house 50 years later. So I just got to talk to her, and she shared some memories of growing up in that house, and it's just a really cool story. So that'll be this Saturday in Tulsa World.
Okay. Yeah, he was one of his more unusual creations. Unfortunately, it no longer exists. Was in Norman. It was called the Bavinger House for OU art professor named Eugene Bavinger. It had one wall, and it was a spiral. Mm-hmm. And so the different rooms were just by sight line. But it is the most bizarre thing you've ever seen, but it doesn't exist anymore, which is unfortunately the fate of a lot of his most distinctive works. They, for some reason, are no longer around. But well, one thing that is very much around is the Nutcracker. Tulsa Ballet will be starting that up this next weekend. We'll have a little preview about the history and that they debuted the new version last year, and it is a uniquely Tulsa version, because I don't think there's any version of the Nutcracker Ballet that has dancing golden drillers. So that's something to look forward to. And another long-running holiday tradition is American Theater Company's A Christmas Carol. They've had to retire their set that was more than about 40 years old, and they've been trying to raise money to have a new one built. And they finally got to the point where they said, we just simply can't use this anymore. So this year's Christmas Carol is going to look very different. And the director says it's probably going to feel a little different too, because they're putting the focus more on characters and staging will be a little different as they start building up for a new set design for that. So those are some of the things that'll be coming to your Tulsa World this weekend, available at fine newsstands everywhere and online at tulsaworld.com. Well, it is Wednesday. It's the last day of November. And for all of those out there that are trying to take part in National Novel Writing Month, you've, by my estimation, have got about 8 hours to get 50,000 words written. So good luck to you there. On behalf of my friends Jimmy Trammell and Grace Wood, we would like to wish you a very pleasant goodbye, and we will see you again later.
Yeah.
Bye.